Welcome to another episode of The Local Dive. This is Alex Scott, joined by Dean Pop Your Top and Sarah and Ashlyn Portero.
Well, I'm about to drink for the first time, which Ashlyn promises is okay. Pineapple strawberry LaCroix. I'm a little nervous. Hold on.
I mean, it's LaCroix, so notice I said okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The pineapple aftertaste a little but it's good. I can take it.
Okay.
Because key lime pie, might as well be. Key lime LaCroix tastes like Mountain Dew, so you can't have everyone be perfect.
Fake news.
I was going to say, not even close. But, I mean, that's like the no soda man, Mountain Dew or something. I don't know.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I've got a Diet Coke, and I feel
one
wonderful.
thing I'm thankful for about my parents, they never bought generic sodas growing up. Like
you
we
didn't
never
have Dr. Thunder?
No, never.
we went through
Sam's
a generic
Cola.
diet soda phase, and it was like a dark time, but it had like a reverse effect because you would drink like double the amount to somehow try to like make up for the fact that it like each time you're like maybe it's gonna be better.
If I drink more, it'll eventually taste like
my taste buds will just like acclimate to the poison.
Yeah.
That I'm
we never
drinking.
had like Publix Coke or Mountain Lightning, whatever it was called, at our house ever. So I'm kind of thankful for that.
Mountain Lightning.
So you had it made.
Well, we
high class and Sarah's, baby.
On that note, we're excited. That's where you get your bougie taste.
There it
is.
is.
All started
Thanks,
with
Thanks,
with
Mom.
brand name soda. We're excited to jump into an episode today where we're going to be talking about the Bible, and what we are excited to spend the next year in as a church is the Bible from beginning to end. As Dean, you prepare to most of the time preach through all 66 books in about 45 weeks or so.
Yeah, we're talking about the Bible. We're so Christian.
Yeah, I know.
Let's go with this podcast.
But before we get into that, we're still going to talk about the Bible, but we wanted to talk about, in the shallow end, what your preferred translation says about you. So basically, what are the stereotypes around the various translations?
Well, first, I feel like we should all share our preferred translations. So who wants to start?
Producer Jacob, what's your preferred translation of the
Who
Bible?
has a microphone this week?
Yeah, producer Jacob is joining us this week.
I have a microphone, and I'm going to go with ESV.
Woo!
For the past
Okay.
4 years.
All right.
Okay, what that
I'm
says.
on that team.
Okay, what that says about you both is, one, you're probably a little on the, you probably enjoy academic stuff. You
Academic stuff.
stuff.
Yes.
You are reformed-ish at the least, reformed-ish.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you like John Piper and are kind of nerdy.
I feel like those are all like fair.
I'll
Like
take
I feel
it.
like if you're ESV, you have to embrace that, like, I don't know, like
You're just a little stuffy?
yeah, maybe. Like one time I was reading this article about it. It was kind of talking about, like, I think it was like Christian stereotypes or something, and it alluded to an ESV reader as the person who, like, maybe you wear black rimmed glasses when you don't actually need glasses, but like nobody will ever know. I feel like that's like a good.
That's great.
That's a good
That is
like
perfect.
descriptor of an ESV reader.
Yeah.
So,
You definitely have like an illuminated Bible. You're like big on the aesthetic of it. I don't know. That's
great.
I'm just saying that about myself.
I use a CSB,
Yep.
Christian Standard Bible, because I'm the standard Christian, so it just works out great.
And that's all we need to say about
That's all I
that.
need to say about that.
yeah, I'm
Very reader friendly, but also a good translation. I was ESV before that.
I was gonna say I'm CSB because when our church switched to like make that sort of the official translation of City Church, I just was like, I don't want to have to go back and forth between.
Imagine that, Ashley.
I'm standing athwart from the.
Maybe I didn't have enough of the ESV memorized or something to stand strong on. But no, I just was like, I'm gonna go all in. So I'm all in CSB, mostly because I'm a follower.
I feel like
think
if you're
then.
CSB, you're like, because the CSB is like probably even more reader friendly than the ESV, and like obviously very like legitimate. So maybe you're like the like solid, like,
Simple guy.
literal, yeah, but not simple, like not. Like we make fun of like ESV readers as like being like academic or like you're trying to be like so intellectual or whatever. Like CSB is not anti that.
No.
It's like I don't know. How would you even put that? Like
I want to know what's going on, but I'm not going to spend like all the time getting into the nuance of like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were smart enough
Your
to take.
jeans are a little more relaxed.
Yeah.
Maybe? Is that what we're trying to say?
Yeah,
Like,
you took. You were smart enough to take algebra, but you took it in 8th grade instead of 7th.
yeah, there you go. There you go.
Something
Like you're
along-
gifted, but you like don't sit at the gifted lunch table.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. You
Whereas-
have normal
Yes.
friends.
whereas the ESV readers, like myself, have like the sign that says we are the gifted lunch table.
But it's also not the person reading Spark Notes because that's the message. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Oh man. Okay, so let's talk about NIV. I know you're NIV because you haven't gotten a new Bible since you were in high school in the 90s.
yeah, you have your transformational student Bible
Yes.
or whatever it is.
and every Bible you have is like such and such, like for teens, for young adults, for moms, for something like that. Message. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's just like, I don't even know what to say about that.
Okay, well, this was a couple, maybe like, I don't know, a month ago. What's worse than the Message is the Cotton Patch Gospel, which if you have not read that I mean, I think it's like most of the New Testament, but it's not the whole Bible. It's set in like the rural South, and Paul is from Tallahassee instead of Tarsus. It's crazy. Like,
Wait, in the actual translation, he's from Tallahassee.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Like-
That's awesome.
Yeah, like it says, I think like Bethlehem it's like somewhere in South Georgia or something.
Yeah,
it's
like-
very, very bizarre.
it's also like very much not the Bible.
Yeah,
we
no,
should
it's not.
say.
It's not a real translation. I mean,
In case anyone listening is like looking this up and thinking we take it seriously.
but it's worth like an entertaining 30 minutes.
It is pretty funny.
read in a Southern accent.
And I like Eugene Peterson, who wrote the Message.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with the Message. It was just kind of like viewed as devotional or a commentary
Sure.
or it's like a help aid. I'm not okay with the Message as a preaching text or like viewed as like the Bible. That's where I'm at. So I'm not anti-Message. Just have it be put in its proper place.
Well, and I think, would it be fair to say, like using the Message as an example, like when we're talking about translations, we're not just talking about a different way to say something. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like
that's
it's
well
like we're
put.
actually talking about like translating original text
Thank you.
into like
Current-
English and or other languages, and so that obviously gets like somewhat modernized in terms and things like obviously we've moved from the KJV to now other translations that are more readable, but yeah, but we're not just talking about like this is a bet, like I would say it this way. So it's important distinction
important to
to make.
include.
It's not
Definitely.
like we're not trying to kind of Webster's dictionary like add words in once
Right.
they've become kind of normal lexicon. Is that the right? I think that's the right use of the word. Maybe I don't know.
Sure.
I think guy who preaches from the Message is just trying too hard. Like he's just really like trying to be
people
like
preach from the
that.
Message?
Yeah,
Wow.
definitely. Yeah, it's
Wow.
like not like tons, but that's definitely a thing.
Okay, the opposite end of that spectrum would be the guy who's like only KJV.
Yeah, and that's
what
really
kind of
bizarre.
what kind of person is that?
Okay, so I still am. I never had a great answer on why that was declared to be like the translation. But like there's certain people like they think if you're not using it, I mean like you're like compromising.
It's
Or,
the
like,
King's English.
well, yeah, there's
I
that.
was gonna say I'm
but
surprised you're not more in favor.
Yeah,
of
but
it.
like independent Southern, fundamentalist
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
likes it.
Yeah.
I was
So-
gonna say, because when I think about KJV in like our context, I'm like, this person eats like at Village Inn or Cracker Barrel at 5:30, or I don't know. Like,
yeah. This is the guy that like actually gets food at the Busy Bee.
yeah.
Oh wait, that's
I get
Ashlyn.
truffles, thank you, and I'm not ashamed to say it.
okay, so much for the ESV being refined.
Listen, the Busy Bee is
Truffles at a gas
classy.
station.
It sells volcano candles. I can address this all day long.
So I asked. Tom Messer, good pastor friend of mine in Trinity Baptist Church in Jacksonville. They're not SBC; they're independent.
Okay.
And he's not the founding pastor. He took over for a guy, and the church forever was like hardcore KJV only.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him about it, and I forget it. It's not very helpful. I kind of forget what he said, but it was somewhere along. I was very curious. Like I was like, why is it that like why are there actual churches that believe that this translation is like just more, really almost like more legit?
Right.
When no scholars believe that, no seminaries teach
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
You won't find a King James version anywhere on a seminary campus unless it's one of those fundamentalist, kind of things like a Pensacola Christian College, something like that. And he was just talking about how at the time it was just kind of it was viewed as more just sort of formal translation, there were maybe some other translations trying to come out at the time that weren't that legit, so it was kind of held onto and grabbed onto. as like almost like the remnant or something like that. And over time, they're just very cautious of anything different than that. Since the KJV translation dates back to 1611.
Right.
So anything that isn't that, which would be ASV, NIV, any more modern translation, they just kind of see that as like a risk of being liberal or whatever it might be, which is not true. But like that's kind of the assumption, which that makes sense just on the surface.
Yeah.
If you just have never really dug into that.
No, that makes total sense. Any other translations or stereotypes that we need to address?
Well, KJV guys nowadays is something, man. That person is hardcore.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
They
also
wear like a short sleeve white button up, but like it's
no Halloween.
maybe a little sweaty. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm probably taking this too far.
that's really true though. No Halloween allowed.
Definitely no Halloween.
Yes.
Like probably don't have a TV.
Yep. And if you do, it's only Andy Griffith reruns that just keep going on loop. Or
Don
whatever.
nods.
Yeah, and then other translations are out there. So if you're New King James, you're like sort of like trying. You're almost like the church that has a contemporary service, but it's only at 8:30 in the morning, so nobody actually goes.
It's one guy with an acoustic guitar. It's like, look, I'm modern.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Now, who are you if you read the New Living Translation?
Ooh,
Or,
okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or NASB too, like New American Standard.
A mom blogger.
That would NLT that's what I would like. I think about because I mean like NLT is like the featured translation of Way FM Christian radio.
Yeah.
So which like I'm not trying to knock Way FM, but. So I kind of think about like you have the Jesus fish on your car and like
a mom
maybe
blogger,
drive a minivan and
you probably don't, this is gonna sound terrible, so bear with me. You don't really read your Bible; you read a devotional, and there's a verse at the top.
Yeah.
So one verse, then you read like a page and a half on like stress in your life and how you really are worth more than laundry and things like that.
Oh my God.
All those kind of things in that culture.
Is that a different person than like whoever bought like 8 copies of Jesus Calling, or are they kind of the same?
They're kind of the same ballpark.
The same.
Yeah. And while you're at it, you should buy 8 copies of Without a Doubt, a book about assurance from myself.
Oh
there you go.
gosh.
Or the Unsaved Christian.
That was like you could almost qualify a seat at the ESV table for that comment.
Thank you. And a book coming out in May called Get Over Yourself.
There we go.
But Getting Over Yourself. That's what it's called. Yeah, I need to know my own books' names. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well.
All in the context of fun.
Yes.
All in the context of fun. Producer Jacob, what do you think of the New Living Translation person?
I don't have a lot of experience with the New Living Translation. However, I was a New King James Version before I became ESV.
Interesting. So enlighten us.
It was more like that was the Bible I was given when I was a kid.
There you go. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, they're really hard words, so it must be like – it was like that transition from like posh New King James Version to posh ESV, because it was like now I just understand what it's saying rather than just like caring about the big words.
Now it just doesn't have pictures.
Right.
and I think hardcore John MacArthur people are New American Standards still. Yeah. Okay. NASB. I think that was big. When I was in college, there's like a little John MacArthur remnant at Liberty when I was there, and like they're all into like Grace to You, his radio program and all that, and his tapes back then, cassette tapes. And they all had New American Standard Bibles, because I think his study Bible was a big hit back then. What might have been an ASB, so that was the thing too. So I don't really hear about that much anymore, except from like MacArthur people.
All right, well, we will transition into the deep dive, and in the year of 2021, as we mentioned earlier, as a church, we're going to be working through all 66 books of the Bible on Sunday morning. Dean, you, and others will be preaching through them, and we'll have a reading plan to go along with that. And obviously, we preach from the scriptures all the time, but we don't, walk kind of in book order from beginning to end in a year. We haven't ever done that as a church before, and so why are we doing that? What's the point?
Well, first, clarifying question to the person wondering: there's 66 books in the Bible and 52 weeks of church a year. How are we going to do that?
Well, we're gonna put some together. We're gonna put some books together, and I think it's actually like 45 45 weeks. Sorry, I just made you freak out.
Everyone's
You're
like,
like 45
and we're
years.
leaving.
Yeah, no, it's like 45 weeks. So yeah, we're gonna have some books like 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John that will be preached together.
And the reason why 45 weeks is because we're gonna give some room for like a couple of little things we'll talk about that just aren't bound by that.
Correct. Christmas, Easter, other topical stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, Ashlyn, to put you on the spot, what comes to your mind in terms of why we're doing it? What would you say first? Kind of comes to your mind and why it's significant?
Well, when we started having conversations about it, it was one part of a larger conversation, just talking about like biblical illiteracy and wanting to address that. I think that's something in the American Christian church at large that, people beyond City Church are sort of realizing that and dealing with that a lot of us, just don't know our Bibles and we need to, work on that. And so as a church, we're kind of diving into saying, hey, let's devote a whole year together to spending it in the scriptures. So we're bringing everyone along in that process and hoping that will be a way that, as Sunday morning worship and as, primary teaching times and also through resources and things like that, to invite our entire church to commit to reading the Bible for a year and to have a holistic kind of overarching understanding of the story of Scripture. So
it's going to be cool that people in our church are going to maybe for the first time in their lives actually go through like 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Maybe they've done it like a Bible reading plan for a year, but never actually paused and heard a sermon on it or actually been taught through the context of it or why it even matters for us as, New Testament, possessing Christians, and those type of things, that how it might just seem like history and names and places and kings and
genealogies,
battles and that type of thing. Some books of the Bible and not actually why. Really, it all helps us understand the big picture of the gospel and who Jesus is. So I think it's going to be a great thing for our church. I think it's going to be a real important thing for us to not skip any books of the Bible. I mean, to actually really be in them. So if you, starting in January, what a great time to make a New Year's resolution to get back to church, and you say, hey, I'm going to lock in here, you're going to get a chance, if you're here even 40 Sundays out of 52, to really be in your Bible.
And something that I think is exciting and is going to be good, and I think we've talked about this a little bit. This wasn't like a primary reason for deciding to go through the Bible in a year, but something that I think will be good for people is, I think a lot of people are, and I definitely have experienced this before when I've done Bible reading plans, it can be intimidating. Sometimes I think people think, either, oh gosh, I've spent so much of my life not giving the whole year to reading the Bible that, it's too hard to start now, or I could never stick to a plan or something like that. There's, I hear people give all kinds of reasons, but there's also something to be said for going into something and knowing that there's going to be times where you feel kind of lost in it or you are confused. It's like, okay, we're all there. There's we should, we're always going to be coming to Scripture with more to learn and more to understand and to grow deeper into the story of the Bible. And so that's something that I'm actually excited about, and I hope that we can emphasize for people is, hey, don't stop just because something becomes confusing or unclear to you. Now, hopefully, the way we lead people through it, we put a lot of intention and work into making the structure clear, into making the goal and the whole flow through the year hopefully clear for people to see things that we want them to see. But I think that's actually going to be a good experience for people because we're so used to being spoon-fed. We can get anything we want at a moment's notice. So to have to really struggle and work through things that we don't immediately understand, but to also say, that shouldn't make us feel as if God is unapproachable or distant from us. It's that we have to immerse ourselves deeper into the Scriptures and we'll grow through that. So I'm really excited for that. If people are willing to embrace that and use this as a year to grow, I think the Lord will really do a lot there.
Well, yeah. And for us, like if we really, a kind of strong conviction our church has that I hope really flows from me is that we believe the way that God has primarily spoken is through the Scriptures,
Yes.
right? That's the way that we're not going to say it's the only way because I'm not God, so I'm not going to tell God what he can and can't do. But we can conclude from the Scriptures that primarily, and also the only way we can know for certain that it's God is when we have our Bibles open, right? So if God has spoken to us through his word and given us this gift of his words to us, we don't need to have, a third of it be something we never touch, or even half of it be something, or even a quarter. I'm sorry, even a quarter of it, or be something we never touch. We need to actually see this word that He in His sovereignty wanted us to receive and to have. So that's why that's one of the reasons I'm excited about it. Like, we're going to get into like His whole word.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I was before this episode looking at a couple statistics on kind of Bible engagement and in America, and only 1 in 5 Americans have read the Bible all the way through.
Wow.
And so if you think about that in just kind of our church and our attendance, there's a lot of 80% of the people that we have on a Sunday, that would mean that they have not read through all of it in its entirety. And so, as a church, as we walk through it, I hope that at least for our church, that the percentage of people at the end of next year who have read all the way through the Bible have gone up. And the other thing is that, and actually I think even as you're saying, like just people who are willing to commit and to kind of, even when we run into things that are maybe confusing or difficult, and like as you're reading through the Bible in a year, it doesn't take long to get to stuff where you're
Right.
like, wait a second, what? Why am I putting a hand on the goat and like sacrificing it? And
God made people out of dust.
right, yeah, yeah.
I have some questions.
Yeah, way,
exactly.
way earlier than even I was. It's like
Where God said, slaughter all those people.
yeah, like there's lots going on, or early in the scriptures to be confusing, but even and even if some people don't make it all the way through, which I hope everybody does, but if they don't, hopefully they're engaging more often. Like one of the other stats I saw was 40% of Americans use the Bible at least once a month, and like I think use meant like kind of read or engage with
more than
it.
I thought.
And yeah, that means 60% is using it less than that, and so if hopefully the church is different than like average Americans who are surveyed. Hopefully, Bible engagement's higher, but so many people own one and it's in their house or on the, like on their phone or what, but they don't know it. They don't interact with it. And so I think the ability for us to walk through and for people to really see the whole story of the scripture. We've been reading through as a staff, kind of doing a 90-day reading plan, which has been, the fastest I've read through the full the full scriptures once we get done. But it's been neat to be able to read in these big chunks and watch and see the way that like the Lord has been faithful and the way that other things, where if you just pick up and you open up to First Chronicles, like you're like, wait, I kind of don't really know what's going on here, and you need the other kind of chapters in the old books in the Old Testament rather to help fill in some of that context and to understand covenants and things like that. So for people to see the kind of the whole meta narrative from Genesis to Revelation, I'm really excited for people to hopefully pick up on that.
Yeah, and then also makes the New Testament that much more understandable.
Mm-hmm.
When you're reading through Hebrews and reading through, it's like, oh, that's okay. I get it now. This is how it all ties together. This language sounds familiar. I read this last month in my Old Testament plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and even to look at the prophets and see how that points. They're pointing to Jesus, and then when you get to the New Testament, you're like, oh, okay, this is what they meant.
And how much more meaningful does that make Christmas than the Advent season? Seeing the Old Testament pointing to this, that makes sense of why this arrival was a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a whole lot more we can say there, and we probably will get to that. But Dean, as you are thinking about preaching through the Bible, what are you most excited to cover, and what are you least excited to cover? And then Ashlyn, to you, like same question, obviously not preaching, but what do you like? Are there certain books of the Bible or parts of the Bible that you're excited for the church to hear, for you to hear preached on?
Yeah, I'm excited to preach through some books I've never really touched before, like in terms of preaching, like Ruth. I never preached anything through Ruth before. I've never actually preached like anything of more than just really quick a text from Joshua. I don't think. I've like used chapters, but never like done the big picture of what's happening there. Mm-hmm. Esther, we did the Minor Prophets about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's 2012, maybe.
And that's kind of an example of what we'll be doing. We do the overview sermon every week during that. So also to celebrate the Book of Revelation and to help everybody see the significance of that and why. Hopefully, the culmination of the entire Bible that we just went through for a year will make sense when we announce that. So I think that. So some ones I'm more kind of head struggling with. Some of those Old Testament books are just going to be a little tough to prep for because I want to get it right. Hopefully, it won't be hard to hear, but just to get right. Leviticus really actually is an easier book than you'd think to preach. I joke about that sometimes, but like there really is kind of one big common theme in there we'll be able to pull out. What I think is going to be more difficult is just trying to find 1 week to preach in the book of Romans. You know, I mean, like what in the world? You know, like that's like that type of idea. Like I could definitely pull out 1 week for Hebrews, but like 1 week for Romans is like, good gracious.
Yeah, where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, one week for 1st and 2nd Samuel. It's like, good gracious. 1 week for the Psalms. You know, those kind of things will be a little complicated. Yes, but I think that I'm looking for to like Ruth, Esther. I've never really done the Proverbs as one book. We've done Proverbs series, like a one-off sermon of the whole book, like things like that. I'm looking forward to that. The ones I'm more like are like the ones that are just really, really hard to pull one sermon out of, which is why the reading plans and things like that are going to be so important for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's good. Ashlyn, what about you? Anything you're excited to hear?
I am really excited for the wisdom literature, so I think that will be really cool. We've done again some kind of series. You know, I think we've done like an Ecclesiastes series fairly recently, last couple years.
Yeah,
maybe?
Last fall I believe, and then Psalms a couple times in the summers and some Proverbs stuff here and there.
Yeah, and Proverbs, but I think that especially in thinking about like different groups and Bible studies and stuff that I've been part of, you know, sometimes we can easily refer back to that portion of the Bible as it almost takes on this like utilitarian approach, you know, like I'm just going to quickly reference back to the Psalms or to Ecclesiastes, and I think those you know, some of those books are a little easier to do some quick reference to. You know, I mean, of course, it's good to situate it in context, but like the Psalms, for example, you know, that's a little easier to just kind of flip through. So I'm excited to have those be in the context of like a Sunday morning gathering and to preach through those and to know that we're going through it within the whole overarching storyline of the Bible. So I'm really excited for that just because those are some of my favorite books of the Bible. And then I mean, honestly, I'm kind of excited to go through the Gospels, you know, all in order. You know, again, I mean, that'll
be cool.
We've certainly preached through the Gospels and they've worked their way into topical sermons. I mean, that's constant. But I don't even know that it's necessarily excited for, you know, specific books like as standalones. Although I will say with the Minor Prophets, I remember that series when we did that. And that was definitely the first time I had ever heard somebody preach through all the Minor Prophets, especially all in a row. And so that was really cool. So it'll be kind of neat now, like 8 years later, to revisit that. But just to kind of preach or to hear these books being preached through, you know, all in order as a church together, I'm just looking forward to that. So.
Producer Jacob, what's your favorite book of the Bible?
Favorite book of the Bible is Romans, and then after that, it's probably Ephesians.
He reads ESV, of course it's Romans.
Yeah, duh. Yeah, duh. Yeah. Sorry. Foolish question.
So, Ashlyn, you talked about this a little bit, but I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on how. So, you know, there are people in our church who are, you know, incredibly faithful followers of Jesus who have been for a long time, who have a lot of exposure to the Bible, who know their Bibles very well, you know, have probably read through it multiple times, and they're going to sit through and go through the same Bible reading plan and the same sermons and same, you know, kind of other supporting kind of environments and opportunities for discipleship. And, you know, I think maybe sometimes it's like anything. You can come to it and go, yeah, you know, I've already read that. Like, I'm just going to skip through this because, you know, or I'm going to breeze through how can somebody who knows their Bible well, who's read it multiple times, how can this be a help to them even as you know, they're very familiar with it?
Well, one, I would say that going back to Dean's point, that the Lord speaks to us through the scriptures. And so coming with an open heart and an open mind and expectantly and even praying through the year as we're in the scriptures, praying through those scriptures, I think just, you know, coming and hoping that God will, you know, teach us in new ways and help you to understand or grasp something more deeply. I think that's something that is a really awesome, you know, aspect of the Christian life, is that even as we know something, we, you know, throughout our whole lives, I mean, we talk about this all the time with the gospel, like we, in an ongoing way, come to grasp the gospel, the truths of the gospel more deeply, you know, and so it continues to mean more and more to you. So I would hope that people in our church who have read the scriptures for many years, or much longer than, much older than I am, would continue to just grow deeper and deeper in their grasp of deep truths. And then even thinking about outside of Sunday morning, some of the different environments that we'll have, like our equip classes and kind of training environments, getting to maybe connect these things to doctrine, to theological studies, and seeing how the scriptures lend themselves to that and really inform like what we understand and know about who God is and important truths of the church. And so I think those are just a couple of things that come to mind.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's going to stretch us to think about what is it that I really need. There's a very common kind of approach in ministry, especially kind of your seeker-sensitive sort of church growthy, everything's about growth kind of model churches, and it's called felt needs preaching. Mm-hmm. So like every sermon series is like they rotate. It's like family, on doubt, and then on family again, and
marriage,
how to be happy,
fear,
just like over and over again. Those kind of things. That's just what they speak to every time. And this, like, what I think what we really need, like, is the scriptures, right? Mm-hmm. So this is going to really, I think, help us really have a greater understanding, even if the person's been in their Bible their entire life, of how the Bible all fits together. I just think it's really going to be significant. I'm not trying to over dramatize it, but I think it's going to be very significant for our church and our terms of our growth.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things I was thinking of in this, is like so many times, even for those of us in ministry and those who have been in the church for a long time, there is a struggle with knowing in our head what the scriptures say and what they call us to, and then doing with our lives and actually believing in our heart what they say and living that out. And so like there's more often than not, it's not that we fail to understand what the scriptures say, as it is we choose to go against them or choose to ignore them, or are unwilling to. I mean, like any Christian who's read their Bible and been in church for a long time knows the Great Commission. Mm-hmm. We really we struggle with that. It's not easy. Like it's the Bible's clear on jealousy, on pride, on a whole lot of things, and we can't do that. And so the ability to come back to what the Lord has said on these things, and through the work of the Spirit, as kind of the Spirit's working in our hearts and in our lives, through the preaching, through teaching, through reading the scriptures, through prayer, hopefully pressing those truths into us, is going to allow us to continue as a church to be conformed to the image of Christ and conform to Christ's likeness individually and corporately. And so I think you can't read your Bible too much. I mean,
sure.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a world where, we kind of want to get something and move on, to the next thing. And just as you were talking, like my grandfather came to mind, and he turned 88 this year. And for over 60 years, he's read the Bible at least once through every single year. So for longer than half a century, he has, every year encountered the living word on a regular basis. And so I just think about and he's someone that I look at who has a living, active faith, even, towards the end of his life. And that's because he has interacted with a living word for almost his whole entire life. And so, when we think about, almost even kind of for going back to the needs-based approach, when people kind of express these felt needs and also who as a Christian has not at least thought one time in their life, I want a deeper faith. I want a stronger faith. I want to know God in a more real way. Well, the way that we have all of that is through the scriptures.
Absolutely.
And so
that's so important.
I think that's something that is really important, that, we just continue to come expectantly knowing that God's faithful. So.
Yeah, and I think really seeing the whole narrative of the scripture allows that to be even more real than just, going on Google and being like, I need Bible verses on faithfulness, or, I need to be inspired today. It's like, no, once you understand all that the Lord has done through the entire kind of biblical narrative, you can go, oh yeah, I don't need a verse, because I have the entire text to see that God is faithful, that he's saving a people for himself, that he has redeemed us and is, I mean, there's just so much there that when you see the whole thing, I mean, yeah, it's good to go back and to dig into certain sections of Scripture, but to be able to see that full picture allows us to realize all of those felt needs are being met through.
Yeah. I kind of think of it as like, if you are going through a really hard time in your life, like if you need to be comforted, I could go find a quote, on a website that is a comforting quote. But if I talk to a real person who's sitting in front of me and who can actually give me comfort, that's night and day. There's no comparison between those two things. One is like a platitude that makes me feel better. One is a real live person speaking words of comfort and and living alongside me, and so that's to me that's to your point, Alex, about going and sort of like extracting pieces from Scripture that we think we need versus actually knowing God through the Scriptures. There's just two totally different things.
So as y'all think about our church and, I know obviously some of the things that we have planned over the next year and this idea of spending the year in the Scriptures, what are some ways that you would like to see our church engage with this initiative? Obviously we're going to have a Bible reading plan, but maybe what are some thoughts on how people could make the most of our year in kind of walking through the Bible?
I mean, this is just has to be is that people actually read their Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really has to be it. I mean, like, we're not getting much done if that doesn't happen. And I also think it's a great opportunity to bring friends, that maybe just want to know more, but are just open to knowing about the Bible. And they're like kind of what you present is like, hey, like we're actually going through the Bible in a year. I don't know if you've ever wondered about like some of these books in the Bible and how they make sense or how I know you have a Bible, that kind of, I know you own one. I think it could be a great kind of hook to hopefully invite some people too, just something real specific to be able to talk about. But my thing is like, what would it look like if you just said for a new year, I know it's not quite here yet, but like we're gonna make church a priority in our life, and this new Bible plan is gonna be kind of part of that refocus. Part, to me, that's gonna be really great. Is really just being here and prioritizing the gathering and everything that comes with it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I would say everything Dean said, just trusting the process, not to use like a cliche term, but committing to it and asking the Lord to help you see it through, so that, because if we commit a whole year of our lives to reading the Scriptures, to really wrestling through things, I'm one thing I think about is just how God is going to bring things up in us individually and corporately that we don't know right now. And so being willing to show up for that and be present and to say, okay, God, I'm going to ask you to change me through the reading of your word. And I'm going to be, open to that. I want to participate in that. I want to be actively engaged in knowing God through the Scriptures. I think that is going to be a game changer, for a lot of people. I really have faith that God can do and will do a lot of the things that we want to see in the church. And of course, he's going to do what he, pleases to do and what he wills for his purposes. And we get to sort of watch that happen. But being a part of Bible in a Year is kind of taking a front row seat to that, of I'm going to show up and I'm going to see how God works in my life because I know he's going to. And
I love that.
And so that excites me. And I hope that excites other people too.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, it made me think of there was a study by Lifeway, and it has to do with the greatest indicator of spiritual growth and spiritual health is reading the Bible, is how people are interacting with the Scriptures. And so, yeah, that commitment to say, because if you sit before the Lord and interact with him through his word, like he will, the Spirit will work in us to transform us.
Fact.
Like it will happen. And so, for somebody who is listening or who's thinking like, man, I really want the Lord to do something in my life. Sit down and read the Bible. Like he's going, like you said, he's going to reveal things in us, in our church, that will be refined, that will be encouraged, that will be comforted, that all through dialogue, conversation by reading his word and him speaking to us through that. So, and I think the other thing is there's so much opportunity for, the reading plan that we're going to kind of push out as a church is not like, it's not a crazy amount of reading. It's, I think it's like, four passages, every day. And part of that, and there's, I think, like grace days or whatever they call it if you miss one, but part of that is so that people are in different parts of the Bible, because we joked about it earlier. It's like, oh, you get to like Deuteronomy and you're like, wait a second, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what all this means. I'm not sure about all these laws, like shellfish something. Okay, I'm out. Like I'm done, and so I'm encouraged too that people will have the opportunity to interact with different parts of the Bible as we read through the whole thing together in a year. But I think you have to commit and do it, like we've said. But that I think that'll be encouraging for our folks.
I have a question for producer Jacob.
Ooh.
On behalf of the college students of City Church, what are you most excited about, and what do you think we'll see from students taking part in this?
I think, especially thinking about my city group, a big need is going through Old Testament books. I don't think a lot of college students outside of student leadership, I don't think a lot of college students have exposure to the Old Testament and how that kind of influenced what we think about the New Testament. So I can think of a lot of people in my city group who are really going to benefit just from that. And I think that is going to open up a lot of doors for them just be excited to be back in a church setting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's good.
That's very exciting.
Do any of you have any advice for individuals who have tried to do a Bible reading plan and they get to whatever part of it and then they stall out? How can people, I know on one hand we're saying, hey, commit to reading and just do it. Just make it happen. What are maybe some things that work in your own life, or that, in other people's lives have worked to help them consistently and regularly engage in the scriptures, to where when you get to a passage that is confusing, or when you're just kind of like, okay, I've done this for 6 months, which is not a way to approach the Bible, but it can feel like that sometimes. So what advice would you give to people to avoid getting stuck in that rut?
Well, first one is don't tap out. It's easy if you are rocking it the first 5 or 6 days, then you miss 2 days just to be done, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to do that. It's not the end of the world if you just pick up where you were in the plan and not backtrack. It's not the end of the world. But the help part is, I'll just have someone that also you're talking about it with.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of that it's organized. Like you said, hey, let's do this together. Or you can ask someone a question and just go, hey, and if they don't know, they can ask somebody else a question. Just to have that one person or two people that are going through it. And I think Ashton dropped her phone. I hope it's okay.
Sorry.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. I think to have that person that would do it with you. I would actually ask someone, a friend, hey, I'm going to do this. I've never done anything like this before. Will you do it too? And we can go through this together. Like if you can keep up with your fantasy football team, you can keep up with this. And that's kind of my encouragement there.
Yeah. I think another thought too would be one, we all have or can have the Bible at our fingertips at any point, and we don't have to be like the person who totes their Bible carrier around. Oh, that was a stereotype we did not touch earlier. But
who does that go to?
I don't know.
NIV?
Maybe, I don't know.
A Bible bag?
Bible carrier. What translations using a Bible
KJV?
carrier?
I'm going NIV.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I'm going NIV. Right. Yeah, except unless you're.
That was my childhood.
Unless you're old. Unless you're, then it's KJV.
Then it's KJV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to think about that for a minute.
You're using the Bible case cover to cover up the fact that it's your teen Bible that you got.
Who has their name embroidered on the Bible? What translation?
Oh, I thought you meant who of us?
I'm going leather. I'm going leather NIV.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah, that's what I'm going.
Yeah, I feel like it's sort of everybody. I don't know.
Well, if you're CSB, you get a different Bible every month because that's how many different versions have been published since its inception.
Yeah,
this is true. I know the wide margin.
It's a lot of embossing that's happening.
CSB also stands for Complimentary Standard Bible because I don't know anybody who's paid for one. But anyways, I was making. I was there was a serious point in there somewhere, and it was that the Bibles are really accessible at our fingertips all the time.
Yes.
And so there are ways that, I mean, whether that's, I think YouVersion has, that the app has the ability to put in, your reading plan or to pull up your reading plan and do it that way. But like, it doesn't, I mean, I think there's a place and a time for the practice of sitting down, opening up the Word, spending time with the Lord. But like, if you're just like also trying to get into the habit of reading, there's nothing wrong with, while you're in the line at Chick-fil-A, like, the most appropriate way to be behind a car and reading your phone.
Like, and their drive-through moves quick.
And their
Bible. Yeah, audio Bible.
Yeah,
like
just get it. Whatever that looks like for you.
There's ways to take a chapter or two at a time, without like being like, oh my gosh, I have to give so much time. It's not. It's way more accessible, I think, is my point, and easy to take in chunks. And so just do it when you can.
The goal is Bible intake.
Yeah.
How that happens
doesn't matter.
Does not matter at all to me.
Any other advice? Any other thoughts on Bible in a year?
Come to church and be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Cool. Well, as we wrap up this episode of The Local Dive, we head to our favorite subject in regards to the local on tap, and that would be food.
Shocker.
Because we love to eat. And as we mentioned last time, the holidays are right around the corner, and it'll even be closer this time because, it's 1 week later. So when this gets published, and, it means Thanksgiving is approaching, and I think most of us, all of us, the tradition is to eat with family at somebody's house and to not go out.
Yes.
I know Ashlyn cooks for her family.
I'm like adamant about not going out to eat on Thanksgiving. I have before with my family, but if I have any control in the matter, I like to.
We're having our second year in a row in North Carolina with the Unsickers.
Nice. If you were in charge of Thanksgiving, you would totally go out.
Oh yeah. Totally nothing to clean up.
Yeah. On that thought, if you were going out to eat, so if Dean was in charge of Thanksgiving dinner, where are the Sarah's going?
In Tallahassee, right?
In Tallahassee.
Okay.
In Tallahassee, yeah.
So we're not. So I don't want to overthink this here, but so we're not just like your normal restaurant. We're like going somewhere like for Thanksgiving. So it's not just like what's your favorite restaurant in Tallahassee. There's like more to it.
Where would you go for Thanksgiving?
But it can be whatever kind of Thanksgiving meal you want it to be.
Yeah, if you want to eat Italian on Thanksgiving.
Oh no, I'm a traditionalist with that. Yeah. So I think I'm going to Kush's because he makes this cornbread sausage stuffing dressing, whatever it's called. Do you call it stuffing or dressing? That's an important question.
Well, it depends. I think it depends. There's a difference.
It depends?
Oh,
yes.
I think one's like cooked in...
Well, stuffing is cooked in the turkey, and dressing is like a casserole. But I think even between the two, dressing, I think, tends to be a little more on the dry side. Like you could make like a cornbread dressing, and that's more as like a casserole, separate. It's not like in and around the turkey.
Why is it called dressing?
I don't totally know.
So Kush makes this amazing cornbread sausage like stuffing dressing. That is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I can eat like bowls and bowls of it. So I'm going there and just basically asking for that with a side of turkey. Like not turkey with the side of that. With the side of turkey. Yeah, that's where I'm going. And a little Cajun Christmas too. Crank up some music.
But it's Thanksgiving.
Thank you. I'm going to say Cajun Thanksgiving. A little Cajun Thanksgiving, and I love their desserts too.
The desserts are strong.
And we have TVs, so we can put your Lions on.
Lions.
Yeah.
I want to interrupt this conversation. A quick Google search tells me that the term dressing, this is per the History Channel, so I don't know how reliable this is, originated around the 1850s when the Victorians deemed stuffing too crude of a name.
Oh,
so basically, dressing began as a euphemism for stuffing, then it evolved into its own casserole.
So it's the same thing.
So which one was
No, it's no longer the same thing. It used to be the same thing.
Which one was like
stuffing was too graphic.
Okay.
Which I mean, if you've ever cooked a turkey, I understand.
Yeah. The act of stuffing
it's invasive.
Yes. Ashlyn, where are you going Thanksgiving?
Okay, if I'm in Tallahassee and I'm going out to eat on Thanksgiving, I actually think I am going to depart from traditional Thanksgiving because I'm like just particular about Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I love Thanksgiving, like the food. But
the gratitude part, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, thankfulness, whatever. I just like to cook a nice meal.
You're always thankful. There you go.
Yes, I'm always thankful.
You don't need a day.
Exactly. So I think I am going to go just totally different. And I think I would say Honestly, what came to mind was masa. Like just Asian fusion feast. Sushi, like Mongolian beef, like vegetables, all that stuff. I'm just going to go totally different and just do masa feast for Thanksgiving.
Todd Unzicker, we go to his house in Raleigh. He does a prime rib.
There you go.
It's a little different.
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like there's the people who are like, it's only turkey. And then there's people who are like, turkey's terrible. It's a gross bird. And it's not very.
Like, Philip Bethencourt does like strips.
Ribeye. I was going to say, I think it's like ribeye steaks. And I think I could be here for that. But so this is, I don't know why. I mean, like when I think about Thanksgiving dinner, it's like classy and refined and whatever.
The way
but
it should be.
Yeah. But if I'm going out, I do feel like it needs to be traditional. And I also feel like the other part of Thanksgiving is you just eat as much as you can.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. You stuff out. Yeah.
So I feel like a buffet kind of has to be the way to go. Now, I don't know like what restaurants in Tallahassee have a Thanksgiving buffet.
Hong Kong first, man.
Golden Corral is open for business.
Well, see, that's kind of where I think I might end up.
Old times, or is it new times?
I think it's new times now. Yeah.
You might get a restaurant that does like a special buffet.
Yeah, that would be my preference. Like to go to, I don't know, if Table 23 did like a Thanksgiving dinner buffet, I would be in for that. But I'm going somewhere with a buffet. I probably wouldn't even care if it was Golden Corral because like
now you have to be old time Tallahassee for this. I know my girl Jessica Kerr listens to this podcast. She'll get this. If Moby Dick's was still opened,
come on,
that would be the ultimate Thanksgiving
destination. Peach cobbler all day.
Target's there now.
Yeah,
or it would be the ultimate destination for Thanksgiving.
I'm fairly certain it's still open. It's just like 2 hours north of here. Outside of Albany, maybe, or somewhere.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
down for that.
There you go. Yeah. Anyways, there we go. Jacob, is there anywhere you're going?
I have two answers. If I'm going for like something in town that's not a chain, I would go Backwoods Bistro.
Ooh, great
good
choice.
Option.
I feel like if they did a Thanksgiving, it would be good.
Yes.
I don't know if they would, but if they did,
that's
it would
a good
be
call.
Which is not the same as the one out Mahan, not the one.
Yeah, that one's like
they're both on Tennessee Street technically. But
Backwoods Crossing.
Backwoods Crossing.
Okay,
yeah,
Crossing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very similar names. And if I was going for a chain, I would go Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, that's a good
Cracker
Barrel
Barrel
Thanksgiving.
A lot of people do that.
That's your closest like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I can get a true Thanksgiving plate.
Yeah.
I'm not going Golden Corral. I bet Cracker Barrel doesn't all you can eat, so I'm going to co-sign with you on that one. So, all right, well, that's enough about that, and we hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Local Dive. You can share with your friends, family, subscribe on iTunes or wherever you're listening, and we'll see you next week for another episode. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Local Dive, a podcast diving into deep and shallow musings about Christ, the church, and culture. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow The Local Dive on social media and continue the conversation with us on Instagram and Twitter @TheLocalDivePod.